Hello, I'm Rachel Richards and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug where we use research by experts and our own experience to discuss everything and anything to do with parenting teenagers.
Hello, I'm Susie Asley, mindfulness coach, psychotherapist and musician and mother of 3 teenagers. 2 of them are twins.
As a parenting coach, I've seen the transformative power of listening to how other parents work. We can feel supported, get fresh ideas, and even if we disagree, it helps us to think more clearly about the way we parent and why. So welcome, pull up a chair and let's begin. Now in this episode, we're going to talk about the issue of teens making friends. But first, let's start with our nuggets.
Oh yay, I love these.
Go on.
Shall I go first?
Yes, you go first.
So we've talked in the past about parenting teenagers, the idea that it is part-time job as opposed to full-time when they're little, and full-time availability. So you never know when they're going to need you, but when they do need you, there's often a, Mom, where are you? And I experienced that last week in half term where my kids were at their dad's in Denmark where he lives. And I had a very late night text from my daughter who was worried and stressed about something. Fortunately, I was still awake because it was quite late, and she was worrying about some school stuff and different things, and she couldn't sleep and she was having a bit of a panic and reaching out, which was lovely. And I was able to text her back, and I sent her a couple of voice memos so she could hear my voice, and explained a few things, gave her some ideas as to how she could manage it. We went backwards and forwards a little bit, and her final text was, "Oh, thanks, Mum. That was really helpful. I can sleep now." Yes. Which was really heartwarming.
Yes.
Reminded her of her breathing techniques.
Yes.
And then I could touch in with her the next couple of days. She was there for a couple more days. And how are you doing? How's it going? And we went backwards and forwards a bit more, but it was that,
yes.
Thanks, Mum.
And they're not sinking into a hole on their own without the support they need.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love that.
That was really nice.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a similar sort of thing where I had a teenager who really wanted to do some public speaking. So it's not just that she was put in the position, she was keen to be in a public speaking role. But whenever she tried it, the first time she tried it, she totally choked. And what I mean by choked is her throat closed, so she couldn't speak. She had hot sweats all over and she was shaking. It was that level of physical response. Yeah. And she asked me, like, what am I supposed to do? And so, we talked about it extensively, and I came up with tips about how you calm the amygdala and how the yogic breathing and all the sorts of things you can do, and you can visualize being successful. There are lots and lots of techniques that are known to be successful, but still this persisted. Yeah. So then I said, okay, well, should we look at it from a different angle? And perhaps if you tried public speaking in a situation where it was low stress. So I found a course where she could go for a week, and she didn't know anybody, and it was a beginner's course. So literally right from the start, they teach you the techniques. And she said, oh, that sounds great. And, not everyone can afford these things. I completely understand that. But there were always things maybe online or whatever. But I put her on this, and it was transformative. And what we realized at the end of this was it's not that she can't do it, and it's not that there's anything wrong with her, is that she didn't have the skills. So it's this, when your teenager is suffering anxiety, this kind of physical response. Yes. And we've always said it's a signal. What's going wrong? What's happening here? And keep digging down. So not just trying to get rid of that feeling. What was causing the feeling was the lack of skills.
Yeah, really interesting.
And now they're gone.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Empowered her.
It empowered her. So that was a really transformative thing for us. Now, back to our theme for this episode. We have touched on it in the past when we've talked about friendship groups, but this is a sort of different thing because it's about how you make new friends and how you keep friends. Yeah. We've got 2 curious things that have been happening, and one of them is the upsurgence of online. So we're not touching, sniffing, smelling people. We're not, you're not reading face-to-face things as much. We're still doing that, but nowhere near as much as we used to. And the other thing that's happening is COVID has taken the teens we've got now, and for a big chunk of them, they've had 1-2 years when they've been told, don't socialize.
Yeah.
Do not, when you're in a classroom, do not look left or right. Keep your mask on.
Yeah.
Right?
And a
Walk
critical
around
time
in
of their
these,
lives.
yes, walk in this pathway. Do not go out. So that fluidity about friendships is gone.
Yes.
And we've all gone, oh, we'll just go back to normal. But for them, that was their new normal.
Yeah, and they didn't learn the skills in that couple of years that are really crucial for especially for our young teenagers, of how to learn to make friends.
And interestingly, I've got a daughter who's really, really academic. And she, because of COVID, she got used to getting into a classroom, having her mask on and studying. And she was really focused on every single lesson. She finds them fascinating and riveting. But she hasn't been talking to the kids either side.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
I don't have that problem.
no, my other child is rich. She says, that's my main social time.
Yeah.
So,
My kids are the ones throwing things. I don't know, actually.
and there was a chap called Scott Galloway who was talking on Diary of a CEO. And the theme was one reason this generation is struggling. And one of the things he said was the number of kids who see their friends every day has been cut in half over the last 10 years.
Wow.
And also, I was talking to my older daughter when she finished Catcher in the Rye, which was, quite a big book when it came out. It was banned in some schools because they thought it was a bad influence. And she put it down, and her response was basically, well, the writing's pretty sloppy, so she wasn't that impressed with it. But she was really struck by, this is a sort of socially alienated teenager. But she said, he's spending so much time with people.
Yes, really interesting.
And I thought, gosh, that in itself makes me realize that our teenagers have not, I mean, some teenagers are not experiencing this, obviously. There are teenagers who are spending lots of time with their friends.
Yeah.
So it's not all teenagers, but there are a huge number of teenagers who somehow the support things have dropped away. You know, the youth clubs have closed down. Some of the other things that were being done to keep them together, to do things together, so where they could meet new teens, other people outside their classroom.
Yes, because they don't hang out on the streets so much because we don't want that.
No.
Yeah. I mean, they do have the online sphere, which isn't the same. But I also think that, and I've been told off a little bit by my teens, of belittling that space, because for them it's actually a really lovely space where they do meet people and they feel that they are real proper friends, and because I'm a boomer I don't really get that. Yes. So they've tried to explain to me, especially my eldest, these are I know this person is a proper friend, and then they can choose to meet up face to face sometimes. He doesn't, but I also know others that do. So it's, being careful that it's not the same as being face to face, but we shouldn't also belittle it. It's actually really important to some of them.
But if everybody you know who is like you is somewhere else, then that's hard, because we need emotional connection. We need physical interaction. Yeah. And when you're in a room with somebody and you're bouncing ideas off them, their face looks different.
Yeah, I think
the warmth is different.
Yes. Both. I mean, kids can get to know people from, the other side of the world by using the online stuff, which is amazing. People they would never normally meet. So that's incredible. But I think you're absolutely right. We need the interpersonal skills. They're crucial. We are social beings.
Yes. It's all very well if we're great parents and we're very connected with our kids, but it's not the same. And there's a guy called Joseph Allen at the University of Virginia who conducted a study of nearly 200 participants, he started when they were 13 years old. And they were asked to rate the quality of their social relationships and romantic relationships, depressive symptoms, work performance. And he said the results are unambiguous, that the teens who had quality friendships when they were younger had a better outcome later on. Now, I read that and that made me feel a bit panicky, but I don't think it's necessarily one leads to the next.
No.
But I think what he's trying to underline is that there's so much more to a person being happy and successful than there is their academic grades.
Oh my goodness.
Or being good at sport. You've got all this soft skills stuff that's important.
Friendship is crucial. Like if the teenagers are happy in their friendships, then they're happy. Obviously if something awful is going on at home, then they're not, but it's so important. And even from an academic perspective, if the kid is happy, they will learn if a child is unhappy, doesn't have friends at school, is not thriving, they're not going to be focusing on their work.
No, and that's a brilliant point, because one of the case studies, a woman called Isabella said that when she was a teenager, she really struggled with her friendships and she became withdrawn, irritable, reclusive. She missed large chunks of class.
Yeah.
And it impacted on her family because she ended up with excessive mood swings and panic attacks. And there was so much guilt and shame for her that she didn't want to talk to her parents about what was underlying all of this. So her parents were seeing this moody, difficult teenager who was skipping school.
Yeah.
Where actually what was happening was she was struggling with her friendships.
Yeah. And we only have so much capacity in our brain. It's not limitless. So if it's full up with friendship issues, which it will be when stuff's going on, then there's not a lot of space for anything else.
No.
It makes sense. They need to be happy. And friendships for teenagers are crucial.
They're crucial.
But they're different, aren't they? So some teens need loads of friends and some need just one. Some, we need to teach our children to find out what kind of friendships suit them and how much and how little. It's not a one size fits all at all.
I love that point, because that's absolutely spot on about what I've read, is that we need to not project onto our teens, because some of us will be extroverts and panicking about our introverted child and vice versa. Yeah. And it's about finding out where they sit and how they feel about their friendships. So what do? We can start a conversation and talk to them generally about school, hobbies, friends, try and get them to open up.
Yeah. I like if I've been in doubt with mine, I've kind of gone, as nonchalantly as possible. Oh, who did you hang out with at lunch today? Or who did you sit next to at lunch today? Or who are you sitting next to in English? Or are they nice? And what did you do at break today? So you just kind of get a little gauge as to whether they were on their own or whether they were hanging out, and whether they're hanging out with the same people. And often, if they're fine, then they'll tell you.
And whether it matters to them.
Yeah, I found that's been quite a good dialogue.
I like that. It's a really good technique. Yes. And being able to sort of validate their feelings. So if they tell you something, rather than feeling really uncomfortable about it, we have to say, I can see how that might feel. And relate to it by maybe putting in a story of yourself, how you had that problem, but this is how you dealt with it,
and not problematizing it. I mean, when I have clients who are teenagers, I nearly always spend quite a lot of time, especially in the first session, just trying to normalize, some of the things they're experiencing are not comfortable or not very nice. And yes, we'll look at them and tips, tools, and manage them differently. But feelings like that are nearly always a normal response to an uncomfortable situation or a stressful situation. Nobody likes at the age of 14 going into a classroom and not knowing anybody or not feeling like they have any friends. So a stress response to that, or an anxious response to that, is normal human response. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not broken. They're not weird or ill. And you just see their shoulders, once they've heard it a couple of times, going, oh, that was nice information. And then stage 2, what can we do to help it?
Yes. So where do those skills come from? For me, I was in a family that didn't really have any social interaction with most other people. It was really hard learning. So I kept thinking, how does this work? How do people get invited to parties? I actually did end up being invited to quite a few parties, but that's possibly to do with how I learnt to relate to people. Just be open. Have your taxi light on. So taxi light, bright yellow, sunshine smile, but not a desperate open. Just, I say to my girls, just smile. Yeah. Smile at people and say, hi, how's it going? Yeah. And you don't have to do anything more than that, because all you're doing is your face is open. You're inviting people into, and that you can say, how's it going? If they don't answer you, doesn't matter. If they do, then maybe they were ready to have some kind of exchange, but don't place everything on black. So whenever you have an interaction with anybody, just keep it light. If they're open to you that day, don't go, oh my God, I found a friend. You actually, what you're trying to do is not find any friend. You're trying to find your tribe. So you've got to sort of open up to as many, I say to my kids, it's a number game. So, you won't necessarily find your tribe in the classroom of 30 people that you're in. Yeah,
I think that's great advice, is to keep it light. I'd wish I'd known that at that age. And just exploring and being curious about different people is really great advice. It's not all or nothing.
Yes. And that's the same thing with everything in the teenage years. Be prepared to just explore and experiment and clothes, whatever it is. You're a teenager. You're supposed to do this. It's okay.
Same with friendship, yeah.
Yes, and teach them how to have a good conversation. And this is, again, these are social skills. They're called social skills. They're not something you're born with.
No.
Right? So
some are.
Some people just seem to be naturally.
But they probably have had parents who've
parents
modelled
who
it.
Yes. So encourage, whenever you've got those times when you're at the dinner table, encourage them to chat about easy topics like music, film, sport. I've had my kids say to me, so what do I talk about? I don't know. And I said, well, what about music? Just say, I've run out of good music to listen to. What are you listening to?
Great idea.
Easy.
Yeah.
Just find little things to connect. And then when you're in the community, you're in a shop, just say, make small talk with that person.
Even
that's the shop. But you see, actually, there are lots and lots of opportunities where you could say, try and make your job, your fun. Here's your fun challenge. Try and make small talk with that person, anything, and get them to respond to you.
Yeah. And we're often in danger, I think, because that is anxiety inducing, isn't it? Especially for some people.
Yes,
and we shouldn't ever force kids to be doing it if it's like really uncomfortable. Of course not. That would be really weird. But we can nudge them. Into that. And the idea of, taking away anything that feels anxious or anxiety inducing, that we remove it for them, because that's not a good thing, or we do it for them every time. That's not really helping them in the long run. So I love that, sort of nudging them to try. I remember once my eldest, and he won't mind me saying this, I'm sure. He thought he was really socially awkward for ages, and he wasn't. He was a bit shy. He was really normal, and now he's not at all. Really, he's really quite good in social situations. But we had his girlfriend's parents round, who were lovely, and they've known each other for years. It's fine. But he was trying to offer one of them a cup of tea at the end of we were eating, and he couldn't kind of break into the conversation to offer her this tea. And he looked up at me. I was in the kitchen getting something, and he was like, I don't know how to do this. Help. Because he thought, well, that would be really rude. But I can't get in. What do I do? So I was like, okay, right, watch. So I just went up, and I did what I do, which was hover a little bit and then sort of jump in when there's a breath, and in a really sort of organic way, because I've done it a million times. I also couldn't do it aged 17. And he just kind of went, oh, okay, I've got that.
Yes, I love that. So you're making it possible for them to say, because they're not going to know what skills they need to know until they're confronted with them, and you're making it possible for them to turn to you and say, I don't know, how do you do this?
How do we do this? Yeah.
And just not making it like, oh, for God's sake.
No.
Just say, oh God, okay, well, let's I'll show you. Watch me how I do it. Yeah. Brilliant. I like that.
It's very funny. And then afterwards I could say to him, do you know what, at your age I was hopeless. Like utterly hopeless. I was really shy. I would have just gone, no, you give them tea.
Exactly.
So also knowing that I was really hopeless and now I'm not is also quite a nice thing for them to know.
And things like making reservations.
Yeah.
So I was very scared of picking up the phone when I was a teenager. And I remember seeing a job advertised and desperately wanting to be a waitress there and being terrified about calling them. And I put the phone down several times after I picked it up to try and call them. And I'd written down what I was going to say. And now it wouldn't cross my mind to be uncomfortable. So I get my kids, if we're going to do anything, I get them to call and make the reservation for.
Wow.
Yes, because why not? Yeah. Because then I can sit with them and, if they stumble, I can help.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, just practice this stuff, because they've got to do it at some point, haven't they?
I think it's also important to have the balance between, sometimes I see younger families, maybe, they're sitting at dinner in a restaurant and they're sort of making their kids order when the kid is obviously really uncomfortable and it's really not, it's kind of feels very forced, and I don't like that. So I think the learning has to be organic and a good time and in a good way.
Yeah, wait till they're ready. Wait till you notice something, but you can't just sit back and say, oh, they're going to, at some point they'll learn it, because if they're excruciatingly shy now, they need you to help model things and nudge them. And be interested in other people.
Yeah.
I've said this to my kids over and over, and slowly they've completely got it. And it's that the most interesting person to most people is themselves. So because I used to worry, now what should I talk about?
Yes,
and you can do that on
really
Apple.
care.
People are mostly interested in you asking. And actually, my daughter said that the other day. She said, Mummy, you know what I've realized is such and such. I really like her. I like her so much. And I said, why is that? She said, because she's really interested in me.
Oh, that's
and she said,
sweet.
so I've realized that that's why. Yeah. That's why you keep saying to me, be interested in people, because it makes you feel great.
Oh, what a great connection. Ding.
So you keep saying it, and then eventually they'll go, oh, yes, it's that.
It's true, though. If we can learn to be good listeners, and to be a good listener is also a skill.
A skill?
Because that takes practice too, because most people are hopeless at it. They're just waiting for the gap to say what they want to say rather than actually listening. Yeah. So learning how to listen is a massively useful skill.
Yes. Again, something we can practice at home.
Connector, yeah.
Again. Be interesting. So if you're on TikTok all day, you're not going to be interesting, because you may try and tell the story of the last thing you scrolled through, but I didn't see it, and it's not, just they need to find other things that are their thing that they can talk about. Some kids are going to find things very easy. They watch the way other people do things, they learn from that, and then they practice it. A lot of kids won't be like that. And they don't even have to be, neurodiverse. They just might just not get things that easily. Yeah. So actually, I have said, right, practice telling a story. So hear a good story that you think's a good, one that other people won't have heard, and now practice it on me.
Oh, what a lovely idea.
And so, we had this fascinating guy around who told this hilarious story. And I said to my daughter, go on, tell me that story, because that's a really good story. And it was a really nice way of her to practice hearing a story that someone else told, retelling it, or seeing something, retelling it. And that gave her confidence.
I love that. That's brilliant. That is really brilliant. I'm going to try that, actually.
And then I feed back to them. I go, oh, that was great.
Exactly.
When you did that, wow.
Yeah, you really told them.
Yeah. And just understanding, so teenagers will socialize differently. So maybe the teenager does like to socialize online. So rather than, saying you've got to do it this way, understanding that. But if they're socializing online, obviously they need to be safe. So that's another whole area which we haven't got time to go into at the moment. But yes.
Yeah, and also teaching our teenagers that the ones that find it really easy to make friends, and that they have, millions of friends, and it's just never been a thing for them, to have their antennae out for those who are feeling awkward, and to teach them compassion and empathy, that actually the awkward kid in the corner is not feeling very nice inside, and there's no skin off their nose to reach out.
There's no skin off their nose, but also for that awkward, your teenager's that awkward one that needs to find more friends. Come back to the light touch, because if someone reaches out to you, do not cling to them like you're about to drown, because they will instantly go, oh, that was a bad idea. That is, so you actually, because I've had that where they've gone, oh my God, why did I do that? Well, I'm the nice person, and now I've got this cling on.
Yes.
So you have to be.
Yes, mine have experienced that too. That's a really, really good point.
So know that when you talk to your teenager about this, say, you find someone that's nice to you, don't suddenly make them your new best friend that you've got to do everything with. Just see that as one chip. Go, okay, next one, and find your tribe. So I was listening to a fantastic piece about ADHD kids, and he was saying that he was a teacher. And he said, what I've done with students is that I've set up, I knew there was one girl who was struggling with her friendships. She wasn't really making friends because she's not like everybody. People look at her and go, she's a bit awkward or something. Or she interrupts all the time. And he said, first of all, you've got to teach these kids skills. You've got to actually say, so what happened there is you interrupted all the time, and that's going to be uncomfortable for people. So this is how to stop.
Yes.
This is how to make friends and not do that. And then also he said, I just set up a group of students who liked Twilight, the book. And he said, I didn't want to read Twilight, but I knew that she loved it. And then suddenly I had 4 kids in this group, bam, friends.
That's
they
amazing.
Can go and talk about.
What a great teacher.
Great teacher.
Lovely.
So if there are any teachers listening.
Yeah, that is a great thing to do. And also I love the idea of teaching them skills like you've talked about with various things, but with friendship as well, teaching them skills, because especially if they are struggling or they have ADHD or whatever they're struggling with, we can be a bit hands off, a bit scared, can't we? Oh, we don't want to offend them more. But actually, if they don't have the skills, then we're not
It's skills based. So don't pretend that your child is, is nothing, there's no problem. Actually address it.
Yeah.
Just say, okay, there's a skills gap there. So, and then every time they go into a new scenario, go, okay, so last time, do you remember what happened then? Let's make sure that this time, just remember these skills and just be matter of fact about it. It's not that you're a bad person. It's just, these are the skills. This is what people are expecting.
Yeah. And then based on their own feelings of who they are and their self-worth and their self-esteem of they don't have to, they don't have to feel that they have to be who they're not.
No, of course.
But that they can, these little skills can be additional to who they already are.
Yes.
They're not trying to, I remember being a teenager and like watching this girl who was really socially able and then thinking, well, now I need to be like her.
Yes.
And I was never going to be like her. I never, with hindsight, I never wanted to be like her, but thinking that I had to be different from who I was to be accepted. It's a really important difference.
But that's a really interesting point you make, because I've told my children to be like magpies, because if they noticed something, they're drawn to somebody and they notice something, look at what are they doing? What is it that you find appealing? Yes. And you don't have to be that person. Yes. You take that little bit and say, oh, I can try and can practice that skill and be like that. And then slowly over time, you're going to meet lots of people who've got really interesting skills, or that, they're social in a way that really appeals to you. If you feel drawn to them, that's you're emotionally being told there's something there that you'd like to get a bit more of.
I love that. And that's coming from a really different place. So that's coming from a place of self-acceptance that you're okay who you are right now. And I like that. I can like that. I can add that on or discard it when I don't want it anymore. I think mine was more like, oh, I don't feel great. I want to be her.
Well, we've all, there are so many teenage books that are written like that, aren't there? Only I can be her.
Yeah, and that's not good. Not that one.
And then at the end of the book, they find that her life isn't that great. And then,
No,
and also the depth of the friendship, because when you make new friends, it can be lovely, but the misunderstandings can be very quick to set in because you don't know each other that well. So you don't know that person does that not out of spite, it's because they're like that, right? So you actually have to, there's a little bit of coaching you can do, you don't have to, but help your teen to think about, what are you saying on because they're messaging all the time, snaps and things. What are you saying? Is your friendship deep enough where they'll really understand that as being non-confrontational or not? There's a lot of room for getting things wrong. Yeah. When you're not a deep friendship.
Yeah. Or the other way, you're not sure of who you are, and then you become the stereotypical good girl, people pleaser, don't want to offend anyone, and then you're not really being authentic with your friends, and then it's all a bit.
And then they're not friends confusing with you because they don't know you.
No.
Because you're not actually being yourself. No. And that's critically important, that you just be who you are. Yeah. So we can just geographically, we can set up things. So we can, if you look at them and you think, okay, they're not, they're stuck in their little class and there are this many people in the class, and then they're not really socializing beyond that. And now how, that's not really doing it for them. How can I do this? So, obviously sports clubs and things like that are an easy hit if they're sporty, but lots of kids aren't. The drama groups, again, if they're not drama. So, but I mean, I've been talking to local kids here and saying, well, why don't the ones who maybe, want to branch out a bit more from their current groups, let's set up a cinema club. So they can you can say, right, this film is on. Why doesn't everybody meet for an hour beforehand? You can have a drink and chat, and then you have a film at the end of it.
That's a great idea.
So you can go in when you don't want to talk to anyone anymore.
Did they think that was the nice thing to do? Yeah. That's, what age are they then?
13 through to 17.
Amazing. I love that idea.
I think it's because then it's, actually what happens is then you sort of open up to just like bring a friend, because it's a cinema, right? Yeah. So anyone can come. And then it gives you a chance to meet other people and start to, because it's finding your tribe that's hard.
Finding your tribe and feeling good about who you are and finding the tribe that matches that rather than changing yourself.
And what's been really helpful for I've got one who's very group oriented and one one who's a floater, and they're both very valid. And I'm a floater. And the floater, she said it was amazing to go on a trip where there were lots of other floaters.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
A lot of these people were just really interesting people, but didn't want to be just in a group.
Oh, how amazing for her to discover that.
Yes.
And we touched on it slightly, but maybe just to clarify that, we have to be careful that our expectations and our friendships, we're not just shoving them on our kids. So if you are a massive party animal and have always had a million friends and super sociable and an extrovert in the sense that you get energy from being with people, then it's going to be troubling for you to see your kid who maybe is an introvert, needs to fill their recharge because they get exhausted, and they may be happy with just one or two friends and they really feel cool and they don't need a big group. We need to have an awareness that maybe our kids aren't like us, and that's fine, and a respect for that.
Yes.
I think that's really important. I've heard lots of situations where, the parents are really worrying about the way the kid is either way, and the kid's like, I'm fine. It's a problem. I wish they'd just leave me alone.
That's the Ab Fab. If anybody's watched Absolutely Fabulous, it's classic Ab Fab.
The classic. And my daughter is, she's an introvert, and she's got lovely friends, and she's got, a good group of friends. So it's not how many friends you have, but she's, from an energy space. So she's really quite aware that she can be with her friends, and that's lovely, and get to know new people. But if she's with new people, that's going to really drain her. And that next day she might have to do nothing. So she's quite aware of how to recharge her battery. But as parents, we need to sort of be a bit aware of that. We're not dragging them to social things because we think they need to have fun. Spot on.
And my mantra with my kids has always been, when you're with a good friend, they make you more yourself than you can be on your own.
Yes.
There's something they just bring something good out of you. If that's not happening, then maybe think about, whether this is the friendship to spend all your money on.
How do you feel after you've been with somebody?
Yes. And remember your own well-being as a parent. So you've talked about how parents can project onto their children, which is a key problem. But it's also when your child, which happens a lot, can have problems with their friendships, whether it's passing or it's a continual thing. We need to look after ourselves and not get too drawn into it, because you can't solve their problems for them. You can sit side by side, you can look at the problem, you can try and coach them, but we also need to not get too deep into it and look after our own health.
Yes, absolutely. I love that point. I think it's really important. And remembering that we set the tone still, even when they're teenagers and older teenagers, we are a big part of setting the tone. So if we go into a situation like it's a massive catastrophe, oh my God, your friend's been horrible to you, this is awful, you poor thing. And it might feel like, and I'm not saying that's never appropriate, but we just need to be aware, what are we saying with our body language? Can we lift them? Can we set a different tone? Can we lift them? Can we help them in a different way?
Yes, or just sit back and help them sit back and look at it, objectively.
Yeah.
So you can email help@teenagersuntangled.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, then why not help other parents? Tell your friends, tell the school, subscribe to our podcast. And, what a massive bonus if you manage to review us. You can do that on Apple Podcasts or on our website, where you can find everything. That's www.teenagersuntangled.com. There are links to every episode there. There's a blog, reviews, easy ways to contact both of us. Susie has her own website, which is
www.mindful-life.co.uk.
Yeah, you can talk to her there.
Yeah.
That's it for now. Goodbye.
Bye-bye for now.